Welcome everyone to the BPE Research webinar, Are Google Results Inflated? My name is Glenn Pash and I will be handling all of the chat and questions throughout today's webinar. Please make sure if you do have any questions, please make sure that you do put them into the chat. We'll keep notes, and at the end of this session, we will have time to answer all of your questions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the founder and CEO of BPE, Brian Pash.
Well, it's so great to be here today. If you are excited about this report, go right into the chat and say, I'm excited. Let's see how many people are excited about learning today, learning new strategies to improve your marketing outcomes. Today is going to be some myth busting. It's going to be some eye-opening. And well, we couldn't be more excited to see that over 900 people have signed up for this live webinar. I want to tell you that everyone who's attending the live webinar will get an email as soon as the webinar is done for you to receive this 30-page research report. Let me set the context for those of you who may not know about my background. I've been in automotive digital marketing for 16 years. I've written 9 books to help the automotive industry grow. This research report was not funded by any company outside of our own. This is an educational, eye-opening look at one of the most popular, if not the most popular, common go-to advertising that dealers use to help them connect with in-market shoppers for sales and service. What I'd like to do is remind you that today's slide deck is a simplified version of the research report, but let me start with an executive overview. Those of you who like to know what you're getting into, well, I'm going to hit you right up front with some of the observations from the printed research report, which I have right in front of me. The first thing is there are no standards for Google Ads reporting, meaning the reports that go to dealers, there's no standards. So what is shown on those reports can vary greatly from one Google certified agency to another. The second important point to keep in mind is that there's no definitions for the metrics that are on these reports, meaning what is a conversion? For some agencies whose moral compass is pointing north, well, a hard conversion would be a phone call, a lead form, a chat, or a text that gave the dealer information to start a conversation. Other agencies will throw into the word conversions shopping activities, maybe a visit to an hours and directions page, or a visit to a VDP, or some other complicated or confusing action that a consumer might take to inflate the number of conversions. So we need to address that in the report. The lack of reporting standards and the lack of definitions have absolutely created confusion in dealers' minds. And 21 years later, we're still asking the same question. How do I know if my Google Ads campaigns are working? And we're going to get to the bottom of that today. One of the other things that's eye-opening, that over 50% of all the hard conversions, measured outcomes from Google Ads campaigns are not for sales. They're for fixed ops. And what's interesting is that based on some data from Dealer.com, in the first 6 months of this year, 93% of all Google Ads campaigns were focused on sales. And that's, well, reinforces research from other paid search providers that the majority of Google Ads campaigns are funded by variable ops specific to sell new or used cars, but over 50% of the conversions are for fixed ops. Something has to change. One of the biggest eye-opening, largest data studies I've seen to date, thanks to the team at Interactive Tell, is that looking at 1 million Google Ads phone calls, less than 13% of those calls were a consumer looking to purchase a new or used car. It's amazing to hear these numbers, but right out of the gate, I want to tell you that the effectiveness and costs of Google ad campaigns are not what you thought. It's not what your agency is reporting. And that misinformation is allowing you to have an ineffective, imbalanced marketing strategy. And that is what we're going to talk about today. So, what if the marketing playbook was rigged? So let me give you a little backstory here. You know, Google Ads first came out in October of 2000. 21 years later, Google Ads is co-opted by many of the OEM digital marketing programs. But how did it get there? Well, when Google first introduced AdWords, well, co-op wasn't available for it. Google must have decided that automotive retail was a major industry to go after. So they built dedicated automotive teams, Google employees, to spend time in the offices of OEMs, in the offices of the largest ad agencies, to get them excited about using Google pay-per-click advertising, display, and later YouTube advertising to help dealers sell more cars. But I want to ask a question. Did Google mistakenly forget to set rules, to define what conversions are, to make sure that their agencies are trained on how to measure conversions and to properly report marketing outcomes? You see, what had happened is that as soon as OEMs decided to co-opt Google Ads, dealers were bombarded with incentives and offers. You might remember these days where you had agencies calling you up and saying, I'm a Google certified agency and you need to push more money into Google. Their goal was to, well, get dealers to spend more money on Google Ads. Well, how do you do that? You have to follow the money trail. Now, there's nothing wrong in setting incentives. Well, we see that in all areas of sales. But in addition to what the dealers were paying per month for their Google Ads management, in addition to whatever their spend was, Google was counting all those spends and basically saying to the largest agency, hey, if you can increase the dealer spend by 20% this quarter, I'll give you this bag of money. And if you, well, virtual money, because it was a sales incentive, money that really went right to the bottom line. Hey, if you can get quarter over quarter increases of dealers spending more money on Google, you can make millions of dollars, and millions of dollars was paid over the years. Thankfully, 2 years ago, the sales incentive program was stopped. I don't know why it was stopped, but I think it was because Google realized they reached a certain saturation level in automotive and they didn't need to give these sales incentive millions of dollars away. Google might as well keep that money to themselves. Why do I bring this up? Is because some of the advice that dealers were flooded with, bombarded with, were directional in getting you to move ad dollars from this bucket into the Google bucket. And yet, what you're going to see today, there is no standards for reporting, no standards for what a conversion was, no interest in reporting the outcomes of those phone calls. It was almost as if, well, somebody knew something, but everyone was in on the game. No one will be criticizing Google at conferences. They were making too much money. So let's take a look at what we should be thinking about. Let's take a look at what truly is a conversion. On this slide, I'm going to reinforce my belief that we should be tracking two things in automotive retail. We don't transact online like e-commerce companies that can quickly take a click and import the sale from the shopping cart. What dealers need to be focused on is measuring hard conversions. These are phone calls, lead forms, chats, and texts from all the tools on their websites. That includes digital retailing tools. That includes third-party pop-up coupons, all hard all hard conversions. And then we should be tracking engagement. What did the consumer do? Did they configure a payment in a digital retailing tool? Did they look at photos? Did they download the Carfax report? Did they start a trade-in process? Or did they book a service appointment? Meaning, what were the actions that people took on their website? Why do I say this? You can't force a consumer to fill out a lead form. You can't force a consumer to call, especially in automotive where the sales cycle is relatively long and the transactions mostly happen inside the showroom. So why do we have to measure engagement? Because when we do, the truth comes to light that the vast majority of dollars spent on Google Ads campaigns are producing outcomes that were never the intention of the funding department, never the intention that all of variable ops dollars, at least 50% of those costs, would be given a free ride by the fixed ops department. Now, there's some takeaways from this research. One of them, spoiler alert, is that if you're going to say Honda dealer near me and buy that, if you're going to buy your own name, then you probably want fixed ops to be paying at least half of those funds. That would free up more funds for you to do more effective targeted marketing for variable operations to sell more cars in a digital age. I want to tell you that sometimes God just surprises me. Today's a big day. We will have this report in thousands of dealers' hands by the end of this day. And my brother Glenn said, hey, by the way, somebody sent me this report. And literally this morning, he's running the console and he said, take a look at this report. And I'm like, oh, we got to put it in the webinar. Let's take a look at this right now. This dealer spent $12,840 over 100 days. According to the agency, their cost per conversion was $4 and their conversion rate was 119%. Now, if you look in this report a little more detailed, you'll see that they had over 2,000 phone calls, only 33 lead forms, and lots of other metrics, even cute little notes to say, man, you're crushing it. Does anybody on this webinar think that this dealer, this agency was able to produce a sales lead for $4? We're going to come back to this in a minute to actually estimate what the true cost per sales opportunity is, but pause for a moment. 2,100 plus phone calls and 33 lead forms. Is anybody scratching their head looking at this report at the dealer level and saying, what were those phone calls for? The answer is, for years, no one seemed to care. And that's why this research report is so important. This is why when you listen to outcomes of your Google Ads campaigns, the true cost, the true effectiveness, the true lack of targeting screams in your ear that you got to do something differently. The second thing you're going to learn in a few moments is that Google's own recommendation is creating this endless loop of fixed ops conversions, yet variable ops is paying the freight. Take a look at this statement, and it's a bold statement, that the cost to generate a sales opportunity, a consumer raising their hand and saying, I need some help to buy a new or used car, is 5 to 10 times more expensive than dealers think. Now, that's very important, than dealers think. And I want to thank Glenn for showing me this report. Does that dealer feel that for $4 they got a lead for their BDC? Possibly. You see, that report was the variable ops spending. The dealer was told that these campaigns were going to help them sell new or used cars. And well, the report said there was over 3,000 conversions. There was about 2,100 phone calls, 33 lead forms. Where were the other 1,000 conversions? Guess what? The report doesn't say. Do you think agencies inflate conversions to make the cost per conversion go down? I don't know their motives, but I only know what a conversion is. A conversion is a phone call, a lead form, a chat and text, digital retailing, trade-in, finance. Those are all forms. You wonder why dealers are scratching their head. Let's dig in a little deeper into the research. Take a look at this chart produced by Dealery Process. And I got some great additional data this week from Dealer.com. I asked Dealery Process, hey, what are the outcomes? What are the common outcomes when people run Google ads through your platform? 67% were a phone call, 28% were a lead form, 5% were chat or text. What I'm suggesting is that having phone conversion on a Google Ads report in itself means nothing to me, because I'm hired by, or your agency is hired by, the variable ops department to help them sell more cars. Is fixed ops important? Let's get that out. Absolutely. But fixed ops is not paying any of the freight for what I'm showing you today. Fixed ops typically is the redheaded stepchild. Give the guy $5,000, let him do whatever he wants. I've heard that so many times. What's fixed ops doing for marketing? I don't know. He has a budget. He's doing some direct mail. He's doing some things. I'm talking that phone calls are the #1 conversion outcome from Google Ads campaigns. In the report, we also add that in the first 6 months, of 2021, of the conversions from their Google Ads campaigns, 85% of the conversions were phone calls. I want you to just sit on that for a moment. The vast majority are phone calls. Is anybody caring what the phone calls were about? You know, phone calls could be because your service department's not sending out reminders when their car is ready, not using a messaging platform. You could be buying your own name and having Google transport customers that you pay for that would have come to your website already. What do you see how important it is in 2021 to have call management in place? I don't care if you don't want to listen to the calls and make your sales team better, but how about understanding the thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands a month for larger stores you're spending on marketing under normal circumstances? Wouldn't you really want to know? Well, take a look at this slide. I want to thank the team at Interactive Tel, because no one has done such an exhaustive study for us. We've had great support from the call tracking companies, Interactive Tel, Car Wars, Call Review, Call Source, to support the data and thesis of this research. But this is, I mentioned it in the executive summary, this is pretty amazing. 1 million phone calls, huge data set. If this slide isn't, take a picture of this slide and show that to your boss if you're a marketing manager or BDC manager, and make the case why they need to invest in call management software. Call management software is not expensive. And let me be very clear. I am not talking about you listening to phone calls. All the call management platforms have technology that will detect the intent, the conversation, and categorize the calls for you. Some even have bridges where you could say 1 for service, 2 for sales, 3 for administration, 4 for parts or the body shop. You don't have to listen to phone calls to know phone outcomes. But we surely can't ignore anymore that the fact that Google certified agencies are sending out reports that say conversions and phone calls, and no one seemed to put Google to the test and say, well, are you achieving our sales objectives, the department who is funding these campaigns? Take a look at this graph for a minute, because this is super important as well. Team at Interactive Tel took a look at the sales phone calls, the phone calls that were identified as Google sales phone calls, and 28% were mishandled. Now, somebody said when I shared some of these slides earlier before the report, Brian, aren't all calls important? Of course, it's just like a silly question. All I was saying is that you're paying for these phone calls, you're paying for the phone to ring. You could have prioritized call routing even if you wanted to, but are dealers doing that? When I asked all the call management companies, why are so many calls mishandled? Well, it's a combination of technology and process. Cassie Bremer, who worked with me on a call study a number of years ago, also confirmed that less than 15% of phone calls analyzed by Car Wars a number of years ago were sales opportunities. I mean, the interactive tell study is a modern data set, but there were some people who were looking at this long ago, and I tried to bring this to the industry's attention, but now I have all of the data I needed to present a robust case and what to do. You see, what Cassie told me, Brian, is about process. It's about cold transferring. Like, we're paying for the phone to ring, and then we're cold transferring calls to an empty desk. Technology and process are an important part of supporting your marketing. And that's why I want to tell you that the dealers I speak with are laser focused on sales efficiency, operational efficiency. And I've been preaching this for years. I'm going to say it again, and it's in print in this report. We have to measure and report with integrity. When you measure, then you can look at, hey, what's the traffic from cars.com look like compared to SEM? What does the traffic from AutoTrader look like compared to SEM or through other channels? You need to be able to say, are the outcomes that I'm getting from my marketing investments aligned with my business objectives? And let me just say one thing. For years, dealers would say, I'm just using that 50 leads from AutoTrader, and I got 200 leads from AdWords. AdWords is so much better. You see, the leads from AutoTrader are from people who want to buy a car. The leads from Google Ad is a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag of people who are clicking your ads for service or parts or body shop or administration. And I don't know why it took so long for the third-party classifieds to understand that they were fighting a war on definitions. They were calling a conversion or a lead. And well, the agencies selling Google Ads just called every conversion a lead, and well, no one defined what a conversion was. You see, if we don't have standards, we're never going to get to a point where we can fairly compare different advertising choices. Let's take a look at this table presented by the team at VistaDash. I asked Dan Moore, president of VistaDash, which is a part of the Car Wars organization, please show me the quality of referral traffic that comes from third-party classified compared to the average traffic coming from SEM campaigns that are generating sales messages, meaning funded by variable ops, not fixed ops campaigns. Now take a look. A through F are different third-party marketplaces like AutoTrader, Cars.com, Edmunds, Car Gurus, KBB. When you take a look at engagement scoring, remember, you can't force a consumer to convert, but you can watch what they do to see if, well, they were just clicking on your ad for service or nothing, or were they shopping? And when you look at the VistaDash KPI called engagement points per session, the third-party classifieds are significantly more engaged in shopping activities. This is, let me be clear, shopping activities for a car. When you look at the percentage of people who are looking at photos of cars, significantly higher. And when you look at the percentage of people who complete a hard conversion, significantly higher. Now, pause for a moment. If you were only counting leads or conversions, you would never see traffic quality. And yet what this report shows, hold on, is that referral traffic, which I call the exhaust of third-party marketplaces, has significantly higher engagement, shopping engagement quality in Google Ads. But why? Well, people don't go to Cars.com, AutoTrader, Car Gurus, KBB to repair their car for service or parts or body shop or to call their buddy if they're going to go out this weekend to a party. But they do go to a local dealer's website to do that. And in fact, if I already showed you that only 13% or less of the phone calls are for sales, that over half of the total conversions are for sales. Well, should be no surprise then that the overall traffic quality from Google Ads campaigns is nowhere near the quality of shopper intensity that comes from dedicated marketplace. Let's look at what a dedicated marketplace really looks like. Here's some data from cars.com. So the question is, why does Google SEM have such low engagement? Here's the truth. It's not generating pure shopper traffic to your website, even though the ads say it's all about sales. Look at the data at cars.com. You would love to have these metrics show on your website from direct consumer. Of course, dealers don't have that because listen, they're in the service business. The average dealer does 7-to-1 or 10-to-1 more retail pay customer transactions per month than car sales. If a dealer's selling 100 cars a month, they may be doing 700 ROs. If they're selling 200 cars a month, they may be doing 1,400 ROs. Hold on, Brian, are you telling me that for all these years, there has been so much compensation for getting dealers to spend more and more? That mean there was some lack of desire to look into the outcomes, lack of desire to measure engagement and outcomes? Well, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there's an awful lot of money at stake for very poor outcomes. How about another very popular marketplace, AutoTrader.com? Look at the engagement of their audience. Now, pause for a moment as you look at this data. Hold on. Wow, when I compare these stats from third-party marketplaces and I compare it to my own attempt at replicating that audience through Google Ads, it comes nowhere close. And even the overall traffic to my own website isn't even close. So why do I bring up marketplace websites? Now, get ready, because it's an important learning step in getting better at local marketing and automotive, whether you like to hear this or not. You were given reports which really hid the fact that the audience quality that you're attracting from Google Ads isn't very pure. But I want you to take a look at this statement, that if the third-party marketplaces or marketplace websites have that high quality traffic, how is it a benefit to you? How about what you once thought was optional is now essential? What if you could apply the cars.com shopper audience to improve your Facebook and Google Ads targeting? What if you could take the AutoTrader audience and apply it to advertising? Take a minute, look in my eyes, listen to me. The standard Google playbook is optimized for a mixed bag of outcomes. It continually perpetuates more fixed ops outcomes from your ad dollars funded by variable ops. We have to do a better job of targeting an in-market shopper. Using the dealer's own website is impossible to use as an in-market shopper audience unless you're measuring engagement. You can't retarget everyone that comes to your website as a dealer. It's so mixed up with service and other activities. But what if you finally realize that the future of automotive advertising is leveraging first-party data? That first-party data can improve Google Ads campaigns, Facebook campaigns, OTT campaigns, well, a whole lot of campaigns. Now, marketplace websites are not the only people that have amazing first-party data, but their first-party data is probably the best it can be. And I bring this up because the same people that were once telling you you could replicate the quality of traffic and audience that third-party marketplaces attract with Google Ads, well, the data says they were lying to you. And it's time for you to realize maybe they were lying to you because of the sales incentives and the back-end bonuses, because the third-party marketplaces and the cable companies weren't compensating digital agencies. We also have to move forward with better metrics. Take a look at this. I mean, this is an extreme case, but I always like to show the variations. There's some dealers here saying, Brian, I don't spend a lot on Google ads. That's not the point. The point is are you measuring outcomes from your advertising? Do you have metrics that see how well aligned your ad dollars are to bringing net new shoppers? Here's a dealer that was spending over $70,000 per month in 2021 on Google ads. Their Google Analytics wasn't even set up properly. When I look how many hard conversions that the dealer could inspect, there was only 65. That's really hard to look at. Almost $250,000 on Google spending. And the only thing the dealer could see were 65 conversions. Obviously, Google Analytics wasn't set up properly, but this goes to my whole point. Did Google sidestep any responsibility for making sure that their agencies knew how to set up conversion goals to make sure Google Ads performs better? And was Google deficient in really educating dealers that the majority of the phone calls are not for sales, and we need to separate sales calls from service calls in order for Google Ads to operate better? You have to make that decision on your own. But here on this report, let's go back there for a minute. Google Analytics said the bounce rate for this traffic was 55%, but we all know that bounce rate can be manipulated by Google events. The true bounce rate was 73%. Listen to me. 3 out of 4 consumers who clicked on a Google ad never went to another page on the dealer's website. Is that the type of shopper traffic you want to pay for out of your variable ops budget? In this case, close to $250,000 in 90 days. I bring this up because we need to pivot. We need to reframe, reimagine what it will look like to advertise to local in-market car shoppers with the dollars we allocate from variable ops. VistaDash and other tools are pioneering the ability to show dealers how engaged the traffic was from Facebook, Google, email marketing, OTT, YouTube, whatever you want to use. What were the conversion outcomes? Separating phone calls by department. These are really important steps. If you want to keep on accepting agency reports that say conversions, and they're not telling you what conversions are, if you really think that you could get a true sales opportunity for under $50 in scale, you're absolutely looking at the wrong data. You see, there's a lot of things that dealers are doing that don't make sense, but you don't see it unless you have the framework of looking at hard conversions and engagement. Now, there's also process issues. Let's take a look at this example. This is a local dealer in New Jersey, Galaxy Toyota. They're buying their own name, which Google often recommends. I've gotten in debates on this, but let's look at it from a different lens. If they didn't buy their name, then their Google My Business listing would show up. Since they're buying their name, that phone number on the bottom of the Google ad is a mobile click to call. When somebody types in Galaxy Toyota, what do you think they're calling for? Well, there's a whole range of percentages, but let's just say the dealer stopped sending out text alerts when people's cars are ready. Well, maybe they thought it was expensive. Well, that's ringing up the phone bill. You see, process and advertising go together. Why would you be buying your name? I don't care if it costs $1, it can cost up to $3 per click. Why would I pay anything to make Google conversions inflate when it had nothing to do with our sales objectives that's funding that campaign? In order for you to have something practical immediately to look at, I want you to consider learning Napkin Math based on our research. I'm going to give you one fictitious example. Let's go through it together, and then I'm going to go back to that agency report that Glenn brought me just this morning. Based on our research, if your dealership got a Google Ads report and said you had 185 conversions, 140 calls, 25 lead forms, 20 chat messages, you could use Napkin Math based on our research from Interactive Tell. 13% of that 140 are sales calls, and about 20% of all leads are discounted. There's two reasons for that: duplicate leads and bad email addresses that obviously people just filled out a fake email address or an email address that was used to unlock. And then our research shows about 50% of chat text messages initiated by consumers are for sales, the rest are for service or navigational purposes with unknown intent. So let's do the math. Did the dealer have 185 leads from their Google Ads campaign? The answer is no. They had 48 estimated sales opportunities. I want you to understand that this is not an insignificant change. If a dealer was spending $8,000 for this traffic, that moves their cost per sales opportunity over $150, where their agency report might have shown a $50 cost per conversion. You see, we have to move away from cost per lead or cost per conversion and move to a cost per sales opportunity. When you move to a cost per sales opportunity model, you can more fairly compare different sources that you depend on to generate hard leads. Now, does Google Ads and other advertising sources influence consumers that come into the dealership without submitting a lead? Yes, that is not what I'm talking about in today's report. But Google themselves, when I've asked them in their showroom visits metric, can you separate sales and service showroom visits? And they said no, because of privacy concerns. Well, I know that the service business can attract 7, 10 to 1. So even the showroom visits metric is somewhat suspect, again, because we're not just selling cars, we're selling service. So I'm trying to compare what it takes to get a hand raiser to call you or submit a form or start a messaging session that says, I want to buy a car. Now let's go back to Glenn's report. Again, I just got this morning. I said, I can't even believe it, but God is good. So let's take a look at what the report looked like. Remember, it had 2,126 calls and 33 lead forms. Okay, that's the math. Now, instead of having 2,159 conversions, by the way, the report said over 3,000. So where they got the other 1,000 magical conversions, I don't know. It wasn't chat or text. 302 sales opportunities. Wow. Now think about that for a minute. The report said their cost per conversion was $4. You saw it, $4. But the cost per sales opportunity was at least $42. 10x more. Remember I showed you that slide that Google Ads is 5 to 10 times more expensive than dealers think? Here was a perfect unexpected example that was dropped on my doorstep this morning. As we come to the close of the data presentation, I have a few points and then I will summarize what we could do to get better. I asked many dealers, well, why are you still using Google Ads if you don't think it's working properly? And they said, well, it's co-opable, and if I don't use it, I'll lose it. I want to encourage all OEM program managers. I saw some people register for today's webinar that work at OEMs and program managers. And let me just say that if you are not taken back by the actual factual data here and go back to your teams and say, well, maybe we should be co-opting some other strategies that deliver more pure shoppers to our dealers' inventory, I would really wonder if you're fit for this job. You may say, Brian, that's being extreme. Well, here's what I look at. Every single dollar to a dealer is important. For 16 years, I've been a dealer advocate, standing up for the dealers when dealers were being bombarded with conquest email, and I exposed the highly irregular, suspicious traffic that was generated by conquest email marketing campaigns. I've written a book on digital marketing, educated thousands of people on Google Analytics. Why? Just so they can have a better idea of how their marketing is working. For the OEM managers watching, if Google is 3 times, 5 times, 10 times more expensive than even you thought to generate a sales opportunity, don't you think that opens up a whole other class of products that do a better job of using first-party data to drive in-market shoppers to a dealer's inventory? And for all the dealers here, I really want to make this point. It would be irresponsible for your dealership not to have a call management system in place. I don't care who you pick, 4 companies, Car Wars, Call Source, Call Review, Interactive Tell, or specialists in automotive call management. But listen, if you don't have a call management platform in place that can automatically detect the outcomes of your marketing calls and all your phone calls and identify areas of opportunity, you're being operationally negligent. You're being negligent with your marketing dollars. You're being negligent with your customer service. What I'm saying is there's technology in place to automate this. And here's the big challenge I have for the agencies here, because we're starting to work on this ourselves. We need to work more closely with the call monitoring companies to ingest through API the outcomes of calls. So when we give a Google Ads campaign, we can break out that phone calls into service, sales, administration, and other. It's time we get serious about call management. Now, in general, why is first-party data so important? Because spraying and praying isn't a strategy. Take a look at this data from Call Source. Out of all the calls that came from organic traffic or direct traffic or referral traffic or paid traffic, notice the percentage of phone calls that were sales opportunities was relatively low, which means take a look at that statement. Dealers need to leverage high quality first-party shopper audiences to refine all ad targeting. That's Google Ads, that's Facebook, that's OTT. If you don't, you're going to get more of what this report is showing you. You're funding yellow page taxi visits from search to your website for fixed ops. Now, again, fixed ops is important, but variable ops is funding this overspending fiasco. So what do? I'd like to give you some concrete steps forward. Let's look at the first one in recommended actions. You have to remove those vague metrics that mean nothing, like bounce rate or cost per lead or cost per conversion. No, you need to move to cost per sales opportunity, engagement per session, and photo engagement rate are just 3 examples of engagement metrics. You can build your own. You could say, what percentage of people engage with my digital retailing tool? You could say DRP, digital retailing percentage. What percentage of those people engage with the tool? You can make engagement metrics. We have to move away from, hey, I got a lead, I got a conversion. What about all the people who didn't convert? And how does that compare with other marketing channels? This is the big one. And I need you to lean in on this slide very, very carefully. Google's own playbook, I think, is flawed. I'd love to hear your comments. I just told you that less than 13% of phone calls are for sales, yet sales is funding 93% of all Google ad spend. Google says, hey, create an ad. They come to your website and measure the conversions and then feed those conversions back into Google Ads to optimize your spending. Why are we, listen, look right at me here and say, why are we sending back a dirty conversion channel? Lead forms is clean. Most chat companies, I know CarNow, Gubagoo, just for example, have events that say chat lead sent sales, chat lead sent service. I know they break it out. What should we be sending back into Google Ads campaigns? Surely not all phone calls. It's a false friend. You're just creating a perpetual loop of getting more fixed ops phone calls. You should be ingesting sales phone calls, sales leads, sales chats, sales SMS messages, and listen, engagement goals. Did they use my digital retailing tool? Did they download the Carfax? Actions that shoppers take This in itself, I believe, is the first time I've ever seen someone challenge feeding back phone call conversions. You saw how many phone call conversions that agency's report showed, 2,100 plus phone calls. They're all being fed back into Google Ads. It's yay, the phone rang for service, for service. Why are we putting that channel in? Yet, there's only 33 lead forms. Does anybody see that odd imbalance? Well, if we continue with this loop, aren't we just creating a self-fulfilling prophecy? Keep on feeding back fixed ops outcomes, and you'll get more fixed ops outcomes. What else can we do? I'm going to give you 2 examples. This example is from cars.com. When you overlay a cars.com highly qualified intent to shop and buy for a car audience over top of a Facebook campaign, over top of a Google Ads campaign, you get a significant performance lift. And I just want to say, think about it. Who has the purest audience? Cars.com, AutoTrader, Car Gurus. These are all companies where people go to shop for a new or used car. I've already demonstrated that when you follow the current Google playbook, you get an awful mix of service and sales opportunities at a relatively high cost. Think about a sandbox and a scooper. Maybe some of you live by the beach and you scoop through the sand and looking for a ring or a box or something really cool like a colored rock. I want you to think about your ad strategy somewhat like the box of sand. Inside that box are some gold nuggets. Those are shoppers. Imagine having a scoop that could just take those gold nuggets out of the sand. When you overlay your ad strategy with high quality in-market data, guess what happens? Your ads go in front of people who are actively shopping. I have an agency, PCG Digital, keeps us on our toes. We also use first-party data. This is an example of a Buick GMC Cadillac dealer in Florida, where we can put in a zip code and actually know how many people own a Buick, GMC, or Cadillac that are showing shopping intent signals right now. We can use these first-party audiences to upgrade our Facebook campaigns, upgrade our Google Ads campaigns, and even do email marketing campaigns using first-party data. Now, what else can Google Ads be used for? Well, of course, long-tail keywords featuring your inventory, absolutely. The more long-tail, precise keyword strategy you use, you can bring definite local shoppers to your website. But when you buy broad words like Honda dealer near me or Honda dealer in your city, please, if you don't believe me, invest in call management and start doing your own napkin math. And you will agree with me that the current playbook of optimizing Google Ads campaigns using phone calls is a broken model. Until we can separate sales phone calls and service phone calls in the Google bidding engine, we are wasting money deliberately. I want to get to some questions, but I want to show you 2 opportunities. If you enjoyed this research, I invite you to join me in November to the Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit. This year, I'm rolling up my sleeve and doing intentional workshops to help dealers master the skills they need to improve operational efficiency in their marketing and their business sales strategy. So I'm giving you an incentive to save today. This is a limited time incentive to sign up. Here's what I'm telling you. You are going to get one-on-one time in workshops that I'm running each day on inspecting your website for engagement tracking, properly setting up your goals, how to properly set up your Google Ads campaigns, how to use first-party data to improve advertising outcomes. We're going to be having people who are talking about building data reporting standards for individual stores and groups. We're going to be talking about Google Data Studio, really techie stuff, along with some amazing data and insights from digital retailing. I just want to let you know that if you have someone in your staff, or whether you're an agency, the conference is open to dealers and agencies. If you want to really build the skills you need to serve the automotive dealer you work for, or if you're at an agency, the dealers that you serve, it's time for you to get registered for the Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit. And one last thing, something brand new, maybe the first time you're hearing about this. The Automotive CXO Summit is for C-level executives in dealer groups with 10 or more stores. It's a private event where we're going to spend Saturday afternoon, the day before the AAA Summit, with C-level executives from dealer groups of 10 stores or more to talk about some really important topics that really impact dealer groups more than a single point store. And then in the evening, I'm going to be taking the C-suite executives to a private dinner, an amazing wine dinner with wines from my wine cellar. It's a way to thank the dealer groups for investing in sending their teams to the AAA Summit. And it's also the first time that we can have C-suite executives together to talk about important things like the research that I shared today to really bring truth, new metrics, new reporting standards, new insights to help dealers sell more cars in the digital age. So I want to tell Glenn he is definitely ready with some questions. I'm ready, and I'd like to use this time to answer any questions you have. And if you enjoyed today's webinar, send me a note. I love your feedback. Brian@brianpash.com is my email address. Just shoot me a note. Love your feedback, what you love the most. And of course, it's time for Q&A. So Glenn, were there any questions from the audience that we wanted to address?
Yes. Can you hear me? We're going. Okay. Just want to be sure everybody in the audience, can you hear me as well? Just want to make sure my microphone is on and working. Perfect. Thank you. So one of the questions, Brian, was, well, if the third parties, right, if Google SEM it has this waste, and you're saying the third parties generate really high intentional traffic, why do these third parties then invest in SEM or sell SEM as well?
Great, super. So right now, the third-party marketplaces, and this is relatively new in the last few years, never really understood that they could leverage their audiences to improve the SEM campaigns that they offer dealers. Okay, and I highlighted one such example from Cars.com. I was talking to Kevin Lesage from AutoTrader, and he also mentioned that when they identify highly active, ready-to-buy consumers that are 15 times more likely to buy, when you push them in a Facebook campaign, when you push them in a Google campaign, it's like setting up a one-to-one marketing. So the third-party marketplaces or the marketplace websites advertise at a national level to drive more consumers to their site, and they develop an amazing audience. In the past, dealers only saw the marketplace websites as a place to list their cars and get some leads and send some traffic to their websites. They never inspected the traffic to their websites. They never saw that those visitors from the third-party marketplaces also called and submitted lead forms. They never got credit for that. What I'm saying now is that if you have a choice in an OEM managed program, if you have a choice, why wouldn't you test overlaying an audience from a third-party marketplace to lift your Google Ads campaigns? Of course, that will depend on which website provider you use, whether you do business with these marketplace websites. All I'm saying is, whether you use marketplace first-party data or other first-party data like we use at our agency, there is a way now to rethink our mindset about local advertising. Instead of spraying and praying with broad keywords, which is part of the Google's playbook, once you start realizing the outcomes you're getting from your Google ads, why wouldn't you partner with suppliers of high quality shopper audiences to help you sell more cars in the digital age?
Great. They said, is there any way to get the trustworthy data from these third-party vendors, right? Besides going out to maybe a different source, do the third parties, are they able to share that data to help dealers filter or agencies filter against this high traffic?
Great. So that would be typically like AutoTrader. If you're, say, a Dealer.com customer and you also subscribe to KBP and AutoTrader, Dealer.com can use the audience data from KBB and AutoTrader to lift up or improve the ad campaigns that you're running through Dealer.com. A Launch Digital, part of Dealer Inspire Cars.com, same thing. Launch Digital will allow you to run, say, social media campaigns or Google Ads campaigns through them that leverage the Cars.com audience. I'm not aware that those audiences are portable out to other agencies. Maybe in scale they are, but the message of this report is when you inspect outcomes, the cost to generate a sales opportunity, someone to raise their hand, is much more expensive than people thought. And the data shows that the current Google playbook is broken because it's generating significantly more opportunities for fixed ops that are measurable. So what do we need to do? We need to rethink our audience targeting strategy. Like I said, we can pick, if a dealer has a new point, I can go into that point and say it's a new Toyota point. I can go in and say, who are all the people who own Toyotas in this marketplace? And I can market to them on Facebook, Google Ads, and through email marketing using first-party data. Or the old playbook was just buy, Toyota dealer near me and Toyota dealer and just blast, not realizing that you're getting a lot of people just for service. A new point, service is important, but why wouldn't you be more sniper, more efficient in your targeting? And the data shows when you overlay first-party audience to broad audiences, you get a significant lift. And that's what I'm trying to say is you need call monitoring in place. So as you're testing different strategies, you could see, hey, I'm getting less service calls from these campaigns. That's a good thing. Let's move down that path even further.
Great. So this is a two-part. One is, are assisted conversions being set up in analytics still valuable? And then someone also asked about time on site or page views. Are they in something that would fall in the bucket of shopping behavior, or would they fall into not so important metric?
Great. At the AAAS conference in November, we're going to be really laying out the framework of how to set up Google Analytics to track engagement. And the truth of the matter is, I don't really care how many page views are happening, because bots can do that, just clicking from link to link to link. I want to see what people did on those pages. That's why VDP views to me is not an effective metric, especially if the person is dropped on the VDP. Now, a consumer who starts on the homepage and navigates to a VDP, that's an engaged signal. But most agency reports or goals are set up to be VDP views, which of course, if you're sending thousands of clicks to VDPs, that goal looks great. Wow, look at that, goals being accomplished. So instead of looking at page views, I want to look at engagements per page, right? I want to look at how many engaged shoppers. Instead of VDP views, I want engaged VDP views. What would I do? Hey, if they're on a VDP and they look at photos, they download the Carfax, they play with the DR tool, that's an engaged VDP visitor. Now, just as a side note, as people get really down to the funnel, most of their shopping's done and they're ready to buy, there's not a lot of engagement, maybe just going to the VDP to see if the car's there and it's at the same price. I understand that mindset. So any low funnel shopping strategies may have less engagements per page, but still they're doing something. Now, in regards to assisted conversions, we didn't address assisted conversions in this report because the average dealer doesn't even have their goals set up properly, because there's no standards and there's no real interest of Google or anyone other than me and a handful of other people who've been trying to get dealers to set up consistent conversion goals so you can track assisted conversion. Assisted conversion means if somebody comes in from a Google ad and doesn't convert, do they come back later through some other channel and then convert? I've written the book on automotive digital marketing, the Automotive Digital Marketing Bible, effectively, and I show how people set up assisted conversions and how important it is. It's very important for third-party marketplaces because their referral traffic does have a good number of assisted conversions, but I'm tired of beating a dead horse. I'm tired of trying to get people to look at assisted conversions. No one seems to care. So what I can do is make it easy for people to see very clearly with this data that Google Ads campaigns are not producing the outcomes that are being reported clearly. And we need to have a new metric set to see engaged shoppers and true outcomes.
Okay,
Glenn,
I think,
is there any other questions?
no, I think that's it. It's just been I want to thank everybody who's been commenting. I see a lot of great discussions going back and forth amongst yourselves as well. But there is a common theme also about the phones and making sure that if you are spending money to generate traffic, whether it's sales or service, to your website, making sure you're taking care of phones, handling those phones correctly, making sure those calls are not getting dropped, regardless of what they're there for, is incredibly important. But that really is it, Brian. I see a lot of thank you always.
Yes, I want to thank everyone for their time. Let me just reinforce what's going to happen. I want to thank Kelly and Nick from our graphics team for putting together the research report. Everyone who attended this webinar, you will be getting an email in minutes with a link to download the PDF. Feel free to share it with your colleagues. If you have other people who missed this webinar, just tell them to go to brianpash.com and fill out the form, and we will send them. So we have two groups of emails going out: the people who just wanted the report via form, and the people who attended today's webinar. They're going out. That's thousands of copies of this report will be in dealers' hands. I'm hoping dealers will take it seriously. I hope 20 groups will take it seriously. I hope that the OEM managers will take it seriously, because here's an opportunity to get better. So until then, shoot me your note, brian@brianpash.com, and please register for the Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit. If you want next generation data-driven insights for your auto dealership or agency, that's the event to attend. Register early before it sells out. Thanks, everyone, and thank you for your time.